The moment the mask slipped wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive, it was subtle, almost invisible, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because this isn't about one awkward interview, this is a pattern. A trail of moments where Meghan Markle stood in front of microphones, cameras, elite rooms full of power players, and somehow crumbled under the simplest questions imaginable. The kind of questions that don't require strategy, don't require PR polish, don't require a team whispering in your ear, just honesty. And yet, every time, something strange happened. The answers didn't land. The words stretched, the meaning blurred. And suddenly, what should have been clarity turned into confusion dressed up as confidence. It starts in Washington, D.C. at the Fortune Summit, a room packed with real founders, real CEOs, real women who built something tangible. The spotlight lands on Meghan Markle. The stage is hers. The setup is perfect. The question is almost laughably simple. How do you separate useful criticism from noise? A question designed to make her look insightful. A question practically gift-wrapped for a clean, powerful answer. But instead of clarity, the response spirals. Protection, energy, vibes, everything circles the topic but never touches it. And then that familiar pivot appears, the safety line. Just look at the groundswell of support. A deflection disguised as wisdom. A redirection disguised as leadership.
How are you able to decipher out like the constructive from obviously the not constructive that you need to ignore?
Well, there are certain things that I've done just for my own self-preservation, but also that I've applied to the brand and for the people that are incredibly supportive. I know the question can be around naysayers, but if you really see the groundswell of support that surrounds the brand and me, that's what I feel the most and that's what I appreciate. But by design, I also recognize that a lot of those people aren't going to my page to see negativity. And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters. So I don't have the comments section on. That's a choice. And yet part of that challenge that I was trying to solve for was then how do I create community?
And just like that, the room shifts because something doesn't feel right. The question wasn't answered, it was avoided completely. And when the conversation moves forward, the cracks don't close, they widen.
But the problem is when they asked her, and maybe she is this delusional, Kevin, but the host specifically asks her about how she navigates negativity. And she wants to distract from this very legitimate question. And she was like, but there's so much support. There's so much support. I have so many fans. I have a community. And so like, does that community really? I don't see it.
Does she?
I mean, you and I will release a podcast episode in 3 hours that has 30,000 streams at least. Okay. Meghan that video has been up on Fortune for 3 hours and it has 3,000 views.
Really?
When you look at the analytics, I don't know. She won't tell us how much she's selling with as ever. I don't know.
Because when pressed even slightly, the illusion of authority starts to wobble. Analytics, results, numbers. Suddenly there's nothing concrete to hold on to, just vague language floating where facts should be. And in a room built on measurable success, that silence becomes deafening. Then comes the podcast moment, a softer setting, a friendlier tone, a golden opportunity. The question is almost generous. If you could rewrite your public story, what would you change? This is where most people pause, reflect, show humility. This is where redemption arcs are born. But not here, not this time. Because instead of reflection, the answer flips outward. Everyone else needs to tell the truth. Everyone else needs to fix the narrative. No ownership, no admission, just a subtle but unmistakable shift of responsibility away from herself.
I wonder if you could rewrite your public narrative from scratch. Is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, I would ask people to tell the truth.
You're very measured about it. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, I'm such a hothead.
Are you? What's your sign?
I'm a Libra. But I know, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit, ghetto with it, like a little bit hood. I would just get so angry if I felt like everyone was lying about me all the time. Like, don't you ever feel like just being like, just leave me alone. Like, let me show you. Is there a part of you that ever is just like, just leave me alone?
Peaks and valleys.
You know?
No, I mean, like,
very elegant.
But it's true. Of course, I've gone through those chapters and you do a lot of work. You do a lot of self-work and go, what's the why? It's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason.
And the reaction? It lands exactly how you'd expect when accountability is missing.
I wonder if you could rewrite your public narrative from scratch. Is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, I would ask people to tell the truth.
Ask people to tell the truth. Meghan, number one, you actually probably really don't want that because, again, we are not living in the insane asylum with you, Meghan. We are not required as a world to go along with your delusion. I just immediately clocked you the first time I saw you. I thought the whole story of you dating Harry was fake and that you were a desperate D-list actress low on the totem pole of a mediocrely successful show trying to get your 20 seconds in the limelight. And although the story of you dating Harry was 100% true, I was not wrong at all in how I initially perceived you. I was actually 100% correct.
Then something even more unsettling surfaces, a contradiction frozen in time. 2016 Meghan standing confidently declaring she would never sell overpriced lifestyle products. No $100 candles. That's obnoxious. That's not her brand. That's not who she is. The aspirational girl next door, she called it. Attainable, relatable, grounded.
I didn't want MeghanMarkle.com. I don't want this to just be me. I want this to be a community much greater than that. So beyond bringing on writers or other people who want to share great content and who understand the voice of the site, which is like talking to a girlfriend and conversational and inspiring, I've always sort of crafted it like aspirational girl next door. You can aspire for it, but you could totally attain it too. There are no $100 candles on my site. That's so obnoxious.
Fast forward, and suddenly those same obnoxious items are not only present, they're central, elevated, rebranded, sold as luxury essentials. And the question isn't just about pricing anymore, it's about identity. Was that original statement real, or was it simply convenient for the moment? And then comes the question that should have been the easiest of them all. Sitting comfortably, relaxed, a controlled environment, a friendly interviewer, do you think you'll be married forever? One word answer. Yes, clean, simple, done, except it doesn't stop there. Because immediately the answer detours into appearance, into compliments, into how handsome her husband is. And suddenly what should feel solid starts to feel padded, reinforced as if the simplicity of yes wasn't enough on its own. And that's where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Because it's not one moment, it's not two, it's repetition, it's consistency and deflection. It's the transformation of direct questions into elaborate winding answers that somehow never quite arrive where they're supposed to. Then comes the kitchen test, a defining moment, a chance to prove authenticity. A lifestyle brand built on food, on presentation, on curated perfection, and the question couldn't be more basic. What's your favorite dish to cook? Not a philosophy, not a speech, just a dish, a name, a real tangible answer. And yet it never comes. Instead, there's talk of preferences, palates, herbs, influences, everything except the actual answer, the one thing the audience is waiting for. Because just when it seemed like the pattern couldn't get more obvious, it escalated into something almost surreal, moments where the room itself began reacting, where other people had to step in, where the performance stopped being controlled and started slipping in real time. On that International Women's Day panel, surrounded by accomplished voices, the setup was once again simple. Tell a quick story about advocating for women at a young age. A quick story. That was it. But what followed didn't feel quick, and it didn't feel contained. The dish soap story stretched, expanded, looped back on itself, repeating the same detail over and over until the energy in the room shifted from engaged to restless, from attentive to waiting. And then something rare happened. Someone intervened. Brooke Shields, sitting right there, cut through the tension with humor, breaking the spell that had taken over the stage. It wasn't support, it was a rescue, a moment where the rhythm had to be forcibly reset because the answer had lost the room entirely. And that's where the pattern sharpens into something undeniable. Because it's not just about avoiding answers anymore, it's about losing control of the moment. Even later, when that same story resurfaced in conversation, it wasn't framed as inspiring. It was framed as overwhelming. Too long, too heavy, too much for what was supposed to be simple. And when a story designed to showcase strength ends up needing someone else to step in and lighten the mood, the question becomes unavoidable. Was the message ever really landing the way it was intended? Then comes the bookstore moment, and this is where the contradiction becomes almost cinematic. Surrounded by shelves, framed as thoughtful, literary, reflective, the setting is doing half the work before a single word is even spoken. But then, quietly, almost casually, comes the admission. No real reading lately. Not actual books, just fragments, parenting guides, language language apps. And then, minutes later, without hesitation, comes a full speech about owning your story, about narrative power, about identity and voice and presence. The words sound polished, they sound practiced. But in that setting, with that earlier confession still hanging in the air, something doesn't align. Because the environment promises depth, but the foundation underneath it feels thin. And when those two things collide, the result isn't inspiration, it's doubt. And just when the tone couldn't get more revealing, the conversation pivots to criticism. A straightforward question about mixed reviews. Another opportunity for clarity. Another chance to ground everything in reality. But instead of acknowledging critique, instead of addressing specifics, the answer drifts into speculation about critics themselves, what they're doing behind closed doors, what they're secretly consuming, how their opinions might not even be genuine. It becomes less about the work and more about discrediting the voices reacting to it. And in that shift, accountability disappears entirely. The focus moves away from the product and onto the people watching it, questioning it, responding to it. And suddenly, the narrative isn't about reception, it's about deflection. Then comes the motherhood moment, carefully framed, emotionally charged, designed to resonate. The idea of recording bedtime stories, of finding ways to stay present even when physically absent, it sounds thoughtful, it sounds intentional. But when you look closer, when you place it against the reality most people experience, something feels off. Because for many, absence isn't managed with production, it's simply endured. And when something so ordinary is presented as extraordinary effort, the gap between perception and reality becomes impossible to ignore. And finally, the self-care question. The simplest kind. Personal, direct, grounded, a chance to reveal something real. And yet, even here, the answer doesn't turn inward, it expands outward. Caring for others becomes the answer. Giving becomes the answer. Everything except the one thing that was actually asked. And by the time the words settle, the pattern has completed itself again. A question asked, a different answer given. 10 moments. 10 opportunities, 10 times where clarity could have cut through everything and didn't. And what's left behind isn't just confusion, it's a trail. A series of moments that when connected start to form a bigger picture. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. Because if this is what happens with the simplest questions, what happens when the questions actually get difficult?